is your name. Your name is strength. Your name is power. A strong tower makes me say, oh, nobody like you, Lord. Nobody like you, Lord. Help me say,
good evening, Evangelist Lee. Good evening.
nobody like you, Lord. Oh, Lord,
Hey, Mama Mitzi. Good evening. Good evening.
how excellent is your name. The name is strength. Your name is power. A strong tower makes me say, and we're crying, oh, nobody like you, Lord. Nobody like you. And we're crying out, oh, nobody like you, Lord. There's nobody like you. Hey, and we're crying to you, Almighty. Nobody, there's nobody like you. And we say, nobody like you, Lord. Nobody like you, Lord. When I consider your heaven and the work of your hands, say, nobody like you, Lord. Hey, every demon at your name must flee. You're strong enough, oh God, to fight for me. Oh God, oh Lord, you are my glory, God. You're the lifter, the lifter, the lifter. You are the lifter, the lifter, the lifter. Oh, we cry out. Nobody like you, Lord. Nobody like you.
Welcome. Got a couple minutes. We're going to get started.
There's nobody like you, God. Nobody like you, Lord.
Hey, Pamela, how you doing? Sister Danielle, I see you. How you doing? Like it and share it. We're going to get started now.
So who would serve a God like this? Who would serve a God like this? When I think about it, who would serve a God like this? He's my Savior, Redeemer, Deliverer, my hiding place. He's my keeper, my provider, my way maker, my sustainer. He's my strength, he's my love, he's mercy, he's forgiveness. Who would serve a God like this? Hey, who would serve a God like this? Hey, say, who would
Come on in. Come on in. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. A little less than 2 minutes. We're going to get started.
When I think on your faithfulness, oh God, who would serve a God like this? Who would serve a master like I know?
1 minute. 1 minute. We'll be starting. 1 minute.
Who would serve a keeper like I have? Who would serve a God like this? Who would serve a Savior like I have? Who would serve a God like this? When I think about you, God, all I can say is serve a God like this. 'Cause you've been so good to me. You've been good to me. You are serve a God like this. Yeah. I searched all over.
Hello, hello, hello. All right. Let's get started here. Because, you know, what I really want to endeavor to do, I know everyone has busy schedule, and we're on multiple times. People on, and you're catching other people. So I want to keep these sessions to about 30 minutes. And that means it's going to take us some time, but we're going to go through this thoroughly. So I want to keep this to 30 minutes. So about 8:05, I want to be signing off and preparing you all for next week. But as I say, this is going to be a weekly endeavor here. We are going to be talking purpose. We are moving into that area of purpose. And you know what, with what's on the horizon and what's coming up, we're gonna have to have a lot of knowledge. You know, this is a time now where we really need to understand where we're going and what we're dealing with, and who we are and whose we are, and the power that we have. And the whole idea of this is really, it's about empowering you as the believer. And I believe as never before, we're in the day now where it's about empowering the believer, empowering the people in the pews. And that's exactly where we are going with this. Now, the book is out. Don't be discouraged by Amazon. They say they only have one left, but if you order, they will get them. I don't have any for sale. I have really this display right here. Your purpose is your superpower. I have this here that I use, that I'm going to use when we go out for shows and book signings. And I have the workbook here. There are two separate entities two separate pieces that you need to have. And don't dismiss the workbook. The workbook, it requires a little work though, but purpose is something that your purpose is something that's important. That's a life impacting, that's life altering, that's life changing. So with that, you know, I designed the workbook to require you to actually take some time and think. It's not like you can sit down and go through that purpose. It's not like you can sit down and go through this purpose activity. If I take a look at this, when you look at your workbook, there is in the workbook, there is a flow chart. You can go through that in a little bit in no time, just thinking about that, because it's really yes or no questions lead you to the next decision. But then on the next page, it starts the activity of identifying your purpose. And this takes some time. Step 2, a life audit. You know, some of these things are straightforward, but then you talk about 3 major challenges in your life since your youth, and you have to think about that. You know, and you know, you have to think about those things. It's not something that you just zop. You have to think about this, because purpose is important. and we're going to find this out. We're going to find this out as we go through this. Now, I'm going to start. I have to start tonight by setting the basis and the groundwork, and the basis for purpose is going to come out of this book, Winning Spiritual Wars, because in purpose, you really need to understand the soul, right? And the whole idea of this book is unleashing the power of the soul. And you need to understand the soul. And and the reason that's so important, because the reason that's going to be so critical and that's going to be so important. Hello. I don't know who I see. Facebook users. I see people coming on. Come on in. But the reason that it's going to be so important, because the soul plays a very, very, very critical role in purpose. And as you read this book, you're going to find out I'm very, as you read the purpose book, but you really should understand the soul going into that. But as you read the purpose book, you're going to see that a lot a lot of emphasis is placed upon the fact that your purpose does not have to be in the church or even a church function or a church, because God gives humanity. He's the God of all humanity, not the God of the people, not the God only of people who go to church. God is the God of everything and everyone. And that's why it's so important to understand the aspects of the soul, because what you're going to find out, and as I talk here tonight, is long before you walked into a church, God had a work and a function for you. It may not have even have anything to do with the church, your work or your function, but the church for everybody, or the temple for everybody, is for us to come and be and engage with God, and to be encouraged, and to get direction, and to get instruction. So God has people that work in the church. But then the overwhelming majority of humanity will have purposes that are not in the church, and we'll and that's why it's so important then to understand the soul, because everybody has a soul. Whether you go to church, whether you don't go to church, whether you're in the church, whether you're not, everybody has a soul, and the soul, we'll find out, is what God is. How God communicates with us. He communicates with us at that level. How should I say? That's probably the best way for me to say it. God communicates with us at that level, in that arena, in that realm of the soul. And so, before I get started on purpose, let's define the soul. Okay, let's go here and let's get let me see how we want to do this. Yeah, let's do it this way. Your purpose is your superpower, right? And that's where we're going to start it tonight. Your purpose is your superpower. Look at this. So what is purpose? Basically, it's the reason for which something is done or created, or for which something exists. I think the first thing we want to drive home is you're not here by happenstance. Then I don't care whether your parents planned you, or whether you were a product of a rape, and that's harsh. But I mean, whether you are a product of a rape, or whether however you arrived here, whether your parents did not plan on having you here, everybody has a purpose. God brought us here for a specific reason. Now you got to think about God. God is good, and all that is good comes from God. And God has a plan for the world, right? He has a plan for the world. And when we get into purpose, we're going to find out that your purpose may not look like what you've heard people say all the time, especially if you've been in church, because people have always tried to attach purpose with a function in the church. And purpose is only attached in the time of Israel. Purpose was only attached to a function in the church for the Levites. The other 11 tribes, they had divine purposes to make humanity better. But their divine purpose was not attached to the church. For those other 11 tribes, the church was the place where they came to get direction from God, instruction, get encouraged, get be built up. The Bible says, how can they hear without a preacher? And how can they preach except they be sent from God? And so God, that was the place for you to come to get strength, for you to be encouraged. And then once you did that on a regular basis, and then once you left the temple, you went back out to doing what God appointed you to do, to serve humanity and to make humanity great. And when we get into purpose, that's going to become ever so clear. That's going to become ever so clear. But the purpose is the reason for which you are here. That's the reason. Nobody is here by chance. Everybody that was born, everybody that actually populates this earth, there is a purpose for good. And I want to specify that there's a purpose for good for which God has assigned and appointed to every individual on the face of the earth. Remember, as you read the book, My Purpose is the Superpower, I go through the first part of learning. Remember, God's goal and his plan was to establish his kingdom on earth. So everybody that comes to earth would have a function in his kingdom. Now, his kingdom includes the church, it includes the medical facilities, it includes the educational facilities, it includes the entertainment facilities, it includes everything that comes together to make humanity function holistically and function the way it does. So God's kingdom includes everything. It includes the farming, it includes engineering, it includes teaching, it includes all of that. All that's required to make humanity better on earth. And so God has assigned purposes, and this is why it's so important to understand the soul, because the soul went to work. Your soul went to work for you, trying to get you on purpose before you even knew anything about Jesus Saves, or before you even knew anything about God. God is, sent his son, and whosoever believes on him should not perish but have everlasting life. Before any of that, your soul went to work for you, and that's why it's important. So the first thing we want to do tonight is establish the soul, and there's misunderstanding around that in a lot of areas. A lot of people don't understand. I heard somebody butcher up body, soul, and spirit, and they really butchered it up, and they had a big crowd, big stage, but they really butchered it up. And so let's get started here. Okay, so first thing, the knowledge challenge. We always reference the worlds or the realms that we live in as natural and spiritual. And one of the reasons, because the Bible says first natural, then spiritual. And so we understand that there is a natural world and then there is a spiritual world. But actually, that's talking about two different planes. And really, it's describing the two planes on two different platforms. Okay, and I know you may not understand where I'm going with now, but I'm going to explain it to you because you need to. This is going to help you. But I want to challenge you though. But I want to challenge you to start referring to these worlds in a different way. Instead of saying natural versus spiritual, I want you to start referring to these in a way that sets your expectation for greatness. That sets your expectation for greatness. That's what I want to do. We always say natural and spiritual, and there's nothing wrong with that. But most people don't understand that when the Bible says natural and spiritual, it's talking about two separate entities across two separate platforms, right? So because the opposite of natural is supernatural, and the opposite of spiritual is physical. So I want to challenge you then. I want to challenge you to start referring to these in such a way that sets your expectation for the phenomenal, for the supernatural, for the miraculous, right? And so instead of saying, we want to start referencing these worlds in their appropriate planes. Inherently, if we do that, it inherently starts to set our expectations for greatness and our expectations for miracles. Now, how do we do that? The opposite of spiritual is physical. Hence, there is a physical world and there's a spiritual world. The opposite of natural is supernatural. Hence, the physical world then is the natural world, and the spiritual world is the supernatural world. Y'all got me there, right? And so I want you to start referring to them then. The spiritual world is a world where non-physical or spiritual beings reside. And these spiritual beings are not constrained by the limitations of the physical, that the physical beings of the natural world are constrained by. Hence, they are supernatural. In other words, things that abide in the supernatural world are not constrained by the constraints of the natural world. And so things that are in the supernatural world can do things that your body can't do, because your body has constraints to the physical world there, which is the natural world. That's why I start referring it to as the natural world and the supernatural world. And you're going to see why just getting that in my spirit resulted in supernatural things beginning to happen for me. It's not, I can say natural world, spiritual world, but I need to understand that the spiritual world is a world of supernatural. And in order for me to get that in my spirit, I started saying natural world, supernatural world, physical world, spiritual world, right? And the beings that reside in the spiritual world are supernatural beings, and that becomes that becomes a point of why. So God created man with dual citizenships. Our bodies live in the natural world, but our souls live in the supernatural world. Now, this is why I'm calling this the knowledge challenge. And I challenge you, stop saying that your soul is a part of you. The soul is not a part of you. The soul is you. Look at Genesis 2:7. And the Lord God formed man from the dust of the ground, body, and breathed into his nostril the breath of life, spirit. And man became a living soul. So dual citizenship, since there is a natural world and a supernatural world, dual citizenship, the dust from the ground, the body, lives in the natural world. But when he breathed the breath of life, the man became a living soul. The soul lives in the supernatural world. So what am I saying? And I want you to get this, because I want you to start, I want you to start, because this is power for you. Your body is you in the natural world. Your soul is you in the supernatural world. So you exist in two worlds. You know, don't say, well, my soul is a part of me. No, the soul is you. When you say your spirit man, what you're saying is your soul, because your soul is not physical, yet it is you. And it is you in that supernatural world, in that spiritual world, which is a supernatural world, right? So when we say our spirit man, we're really talking about our soul, because it's not physical. It lives in the supernatural world. Now, think about what could happen then if your soul is you in the supernatural world, and your body is you in the natural world. And since your soul is in the supernatural world, it's not constrained. It's not limited to the limitations of your body in the natural world. So if you could get your soul to impact your life in the natural world, you would realize miracles and supernatural things on a regular basis. Now, the older people didn't understand this, right? They didn't understand this, but they did understand that there was something about the souls. So they always did things like, say, my soul says yes. He's a wonder in my soul. My soul loves only you. My soul. What they were doing they were affirming the dominance of the supernatural soul in the natural world. So they experienced things, right? And so our soul then is, and the reason this is important, because if you look in the appendix of this book, I give you if you look in the appendix of this book, Winning Spiritual Wars, I give you when does the soul come? I give you, there are three prevailing views on when people get souls, right? And only two of them could have any biblical basis. One of them is that it is called traditionalism, which means that as soon as a person is conceived, God gives them a soul. And the other one is creationalism. It's not until you get a body that you get a soul. Now, both of those could have basis in the Bible. You could get scripture to support either one of them. The third one is that there is a warehouse of souls, and this is you get a soul when you're born, and then when you die, the soul goes back to the warehouse, and maybe it goes to someone else. That's more in line with this new age stuff that comes out. That says everybody is reincarnated and all. That's more in line with that. And that's why, see, if you're gonna understand this is exactly why in the appendix of this book, I actually give you that. I give you that, right? So there's only two of them that's relative. But it's not so much when we get a soul, it's that understanding that the soul comes from God, the soul belongs to God, and at death, the soul wants to return to God. So from the moment you enter into the world, the soul is working on bringing you into purpose. Before you even know what purpose is, the soul is working on bringing you into purpose. Before you know who a God understanding, the soul is working you into purpose. This is how Paul was so knowledgeable, right? Because long before his Damascus Road experience, he had sat at the feet of Gamaliel. He had gone through all these things because you are born with purpose. God brings you into this world in the optimal time, the optimal environment for you to complete your purpose. He brings you into this world under optimal circumstances for you to complete your purpose, right? This is long before you know about being saved. This is long before you walk into a church. As a matter of fact, Ephesians 1:4 said, according as he had called us before the foundations of the world. So long before you know anything about salvation, your soul has been working to bring you in line, bring you in purpose, right? And that's why it's so important to understand the soul first and the function of the soul. And the soul being in the supernatural world, it comes from God. And that's how God communicates with us. And that's how God does that. So long before Paul had a Damascus Road experience, he had sat at the foot of Gamaliel, because that was part of what he needed to do to fulfill his purpose. So these things was happening before he got saved. These things was happening before he knew anything about it. Now, here's the thing about it. Before he got saved, he could act. The soul does not force you to do anything. And that's one thing that in this purpose book, I call out. It doesn't force you to do anything, right? And God doesn't force you to do anything. So long before Paul got his Damascus Road experience and gave his life to Christ, his soul was working to bring him into purpose. So some of the things that he needed, he got a chance to do. He did them. It got him into it. Sometimes now, something you look at you look at Paul instigating the death of Stephen, and you see right then that even though the soul was working to bring him into purpose, he wasn't always obedient. And he wasn't, and that's with everybody. Everybody, until we give the Lord our life. And here has been a misnomer and a misunderstanding in the church, is that God doesn't start working with us until we give our life to him. But in reality, the soul has been working from the very beginning, trying to bring you into purpose, nudge you into purpose, and nudge you. That's exactly why Paul talks about in Romans how he had this struggle within him before he got saved. There was a will, and if you go back and look at my previous messages, you see I explain the soul very, very well. Or even in this book, I explain the soul very, very well as being emotions, as being the will, and being the conscience. So Paul, that was the struggle. The soul was trying to get Paul to do things that he would needed and to live according to his purpose, but Paul wasn't saved, right? And so the influence of sin kept overriding him. It wasn't until he gave his life to Christ that he could overcome the influence of sin. So what am I saying? And I use that. And that's why you have to take your time when you're reading this book on purpose. I use that to show you that the soul was working from the time you are born to bring you into purpose. Before you walk into any church, before you say yes to the Lord, before you know anything about salvation, your soul is working with you, right? And the soul is in the supernatural, and the body is in the natural, and the soul is trying to bring you in alignment so that you can fulfill your purpose, so that you can do your purpose. So some of the things that the soul, from what we can gather from Paul, is that some of the things the soul was successful in getting Paul into purpose. I mean, because you look at he was birthed he was birthed into this world under optimal positions, under optimal circumstances, in the correct environment to fulfill his purpose. So God knew that. So here's the first thing: you're not a mistake. And wherever God puts you at birth, that was the optimal place for you to do what God wanted you to do in life. I don't care where that was, wherever it was, God placed you here in the optimal place, in the perfect environment for you to be successful in fulfilling his assignment that he has given you in life. And so with Paul was born. God knew what he wanted Paul to do, to be the apostle to the Gentiles. So when Paul was born, he was born in optimal situations where he could get the education that he needed. He opted so that he could have citizenship as a Roman and as a Jew. All those things were not just luck. And all those things, and that's what I'm saying. Some of your hardships in your life were not just luck. Some of the things and that's why when you work on this workbook, you have to think about those times that you went through things, and and I only ask for three. I only list 3 areas, 3 things that you went through that were tough, the 3 toughest things. And the reason I said 3, because those things will probably stand out in your mind. The harshest, the roughest times you had will probably think out in your mind, and you can use those. And what you will probably find out as you go through the exercise in the book, you will probably learn that those things were God really kind of pull you into purpose and getting you some things done. But we're going to cover that later on in this. Let me continue with this here soul. You have to know the soul. So the reason I challenge you to start referring it to as the natural world and the supernatural world, because then when you understand that your body is you in the natural world and your soul is you in the supernatural world, it sets the expectation for miracles. It sets your expectation for great things to happen. It sets your expectations for phenomenal things to happen. And I know you can say natural world and spiritual world, but the opposite of spiritual is physical. And the opposite of natural is supernatural. So if you continue to say natural and spiritual world, because that's what the Bible says too, and that's fine, you need to understand that the spiritual world is a world of supernatural beings. And being that is the case, it is a supernatural world. So I started saying natural and supernatural world, understanding that my soul is me in the supernatural world, my body is me in the natural world, and the spirit of me, my characteristics. That's what the spirit is really my characteristics, my ways, the things I do. The spirit that came into me, God breathed into me, the body came to life because it quickened the body. But what we often overlook is that saying when he breathed the spirit, the man became a living soul. So whether the soul was there and not alive, the spirit made it alive. The man became a living soul. Or whether the soul was not even there, but when he breathed the spirit, the soul was created. See, that's why, though, when you look in the back in the appendix, there's two of the three prevailing views of where the soul comes from, and they could be, because when you look at this, you could say when man became a living soul, you could say the soul was there, but it was not alive. The spirit made it alive. Or you could say the soul was not even there, and the spirit, when the spirit was breathed into it, it existed. That is traditionalism, and that is creationist viewpoints of where the soul, or when the soul comes, right? And either one of those, since the Bible doesn't tell us exactly when our soul comes, either one of those could be accepted, whether it comes through traditionalism, which means that when the spirit was breathed into the soul was already there, it just came to life. Or whether it was creationism, which of the soul, which means that when the spirit was breathed into the dust, the soul was created. It could be either or, but we know it can't be that third one, which is what the New Age movement and the New Age religions use, and that there's a warehouses of souls, and when you are birthed, God gives you a soul from the warehouse, and then when you die, he takes it back, which means somebody else may get that soul a little bit later. That's why you get all this creation, this New Age stuff, and the reincarnation, and all that stuff. Look, take some time and read the chapter on the Constitution of Man, and read the appendix to get an understanding of this, because when you get an understanding of this, you understand that the soul was working for you from the very time that you came into the world. So I started referring to it as the natural world and the supernatural world. The natural world is the world where my body lives, me as my body. The supernatural world is where me as my soul lives. And I don't look at the soul as a part of me. I look at the soul, I view the soul the way God wanted us to view the soul. It's not a part of me, it is me in the supernatural world. And the body is me in the natural world, right? Now the spirit, I can say, well, okay, that's a part of me in both of the worlds. Right? It's a part of me in both of the world. So I look at it as, and I view it as the Bible. And the reason this sets your expectation, because if your soul, you get to understand then that you are existing and living in a supernatural world, and you're existing and living in the natural world. Now, if you can get the you in the supernatural world to be the dominant you, it will impact the you in the natural world. And when that happens, you see miracles. That if you want a definition of a miracle, you will see miracles right then, right? And look, I'm already at 8:05, and I'm trying to keep these to 30 minutes. And so, as I say, I'd say natural world and supernatural world, because my body is me. It's not part of me. My body is me in the natural world. My soul is me in the supernatural world. Or if I'm going to say spiritual world, I say my soul is me in the spiritual world, and my body is me in the physical world, right? Because the opposite of spiritual is physical, and the opposite of natural is supernatural. So I deal with them in the appropriate planes, and that sets my expectation. That sets my expectation. Now, why is it so important? Because there are things that when you start your purpose is your superpower. It's power. What God gives you as a purpose, it empowers you beyond what you can get in the physical. It requires you. And so there are times when I did it last week. All that white stuff was floating through the air, and we was having pollen days, and they were saying that allergies this, and I knew I had allergies real bad, and I was taking stuff, and I'm in there, and my wife said, "You okay?" I got up and went in my prayer room, and I said, look, I said, look, I'm teaching this faith, and I'm teaching this, and then it just hit me. You've been telling people to say, let your soul do it. So I said, my soul says that my allergies are subsiding. My soul says that. And lo and behold, I woke up the next morning better. I went out and cut the yard Sunday. I got home from church, went out, cut the yard in the middle of all that stuff, and all that stuff was flying. I'm like, I'm going. Jeanette said, what you doing? I'm going to cut the yard. I went cut the yard. No problem. If you get your soul to be dominant in your soul, and this book here first deals with that. You can start realizing supernatural. So when I say something, when my tooth had swole up the other day, and the toothache, and I said, my soul says it, and I laid down and went down and woke up and I said, well, how you doing? I'm fine. When you get your soul, because you are a living soul, it's not a part of you, it is you. And it is you in the supernatural world. So if you can get your soul to impact the physical world or the natural world, you will realize and you will experience phenomenal events, supernatural miracles. You will experience miracles, right? And this is what and I'm gonna close. This is my brother Jerry. I was speaking, and right after the Lord gave me this on the soul, I was speaking, and up there in the upper right, there he was in the hospital. And I got a text while I was speaking saying, come and give your brother, come and give him his last rites, because they was expecting him to die, right? And I get to the hospital, and this is actually him. First of all, let me say, I did not take these pictures. He took these pictures, and he posted these pictures, right? Because when I got to the hospital, he was looking worse than what he is in the upper right-hand corner. Right, he was looking worse than what he was in the upper right-hand corner. This picture apparently was a picture that he took of himself, or he had somebody take of him while he was on his way to that bad state. Right, when I got to the hospital, it was worse than that, and he couldn't sit up, he couldn't just look. And I said to him, I said, look, Jerry, you don't have to die. I said, because you are a living soul. And you have a soul that's in the supernatural, and the supernatural is not limited to the constraints of the natural. So you don't have to die. I said, if you want to give your life to Christ and let the Lord take care of this, you can do it. And he said, he just kind of shook his head. Not yeah. And look, I showed, look, so now don't start saying, you don't have to stop saying with his stripes I'm healed. You start saying my soul says with his stripes I am healed. See, me in the supernatural is saying with his stripes I am healed. Because when the doctor gives you a diagnosis, the body hears it in the natural and says, oh, this is what I got to do. The soul hears it in the supernatural and says, soul doesn't have the constraints that the body has. So the soul said, look, I I ain't got to deal with that. I ain't got just kick it out, get rid of it, right? But there he is, less than 2 weeks after my hospital visit, right? But not only that, he went online and he posted, and look what he said. Good morning, family and friends. This is me this morning. Said in February, March, and April, I fought for my life. I was hospitalized for about 3 weeks. I dropped down to 113 pounds, but look at him now. Look at him now. How does that happen? Because the soul lives in the supernatural, and the soul is not limited to the constraints of the natural, right? But it wasn't just him. People started getting this book and applying these principles. Here, I blocked out the name because this person may not she posted this, but she may not want you to know. I didn't know her either at the time. Right? Said, my husband has been ill for 3 years. He had been prescribed so many medications. I had to purchase a night table basket to keep them from falling on the floor. He was chronically ill. We went to specialists and are thousands of dollars in debt, and nothing worked to help but God. I saw your post on healing experience as a result of your teachings. I read where you said once, Pastor, that many don't have to die or suffer had the teachings been available. God told me to pray for him twice a day. The devil told me I had no power because he'd be okay for a day or two and then wore off. I bought the book. But not only, she said she bought eight of them in total, 8 total, right? Because she said she sent them to everybody after having. You taught me how to use the oil that you gave us. My husband went from looking like he was dying to looking healthy in a matter of days. He's eating well. He has begun working out again. He looks and feels great. My daughter taught her children to pray. We're in the process of mastering the principles God gave you. I can't tell you how grateful we are to God for you and Lady Race. Look, it ain't nothing. This is what I had a apostle sent me a message, and he said, look, he said, what you have just done, God brought you on earth to reveal that. He said, and you're going to have, and he didn't see me. He said, you're going to have people all over the world coming to you saying, teach us how to apply this. This is nothing but what the Bible has already put out for us, right? For us. And it's important then for you to understand that you are supernatural in that supernatural world because your soul is you. And you're going to need that when we go into purpose. This is why you will be successful in purpose regardless. If God called you to be a teacher, you'll be successful in teaching in life if you do your purpose. If God called you to be a pilot, you're going to be successful in piloting and life as long as you work in your purpose. If God called you to be a groundskeeper, you're going to be successful in your groundkeeping and life as long as you operate and function in your purpose. The key is determining just what you were put here to do. And that's what the exercise in this book is designed to get you to that point. It's designed to get you to a point so that you can say, this is why God put me here, right? Because this is why God put me here. And so I could have put up more of these, but I don't, and I'm already 15 minutes over where I want to be. But I want you to, before we go into next week, because next week we're going to start with the first part, purpose, and on each week I'm going to try to have a guest that'll come that we can talk over these things with you, and I want it to be a conversation, right? But I want it to be a conversation. So what I want you to do first is to understand the soul is that I would like for you to take this book, this Winning Spiritual Wars, chapter 3, the Constitution of Man, chapter 3. Read that chapter 3 so you can get understanding, and then go to the appendix, and it said, where is the soul created? And that's where we get the Trudesiism, the creationism, and you get that. And I explained the New Age point of view too, because you need to know that also, right? We're living in a time now for understanding. And if you understand the word, then you can utilize the word to its fullest potential, and you can get the things that God wanted us to get out of the word. And that's so important. So if you will do that and have that understanding, and next week we will start out with the very first part. We will first start out with purpose. I'm going to have a guest here, and we're going to talk this through. It's going to be a conversation. So I know I'm asking you to read a lot to begin with, but the understanding of the soul is really, 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 really important, right? So if you could read through next week, I would say just read the foreword and the introduction for next week, and that'll be enough for us to lay the basis and get started, get grounded, and get going in it. But I'm telling you, we're going to experience some things, supernatural things, when you understand purpose and when you understand your soul. And I will say this: we are planning our Dominion Conference in November, and it's going to be the power of purpose. And if you, we're gonna have a hotel and everything. We're hotel accommodations. If you want to make it into the city for November 4th, 5th, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, that'll be a great time, because I'm telling you, we're gonna have workshops. We're going to have seminars. We're going to be at a local and conference facility, a local hotel, and then we'll have worship service. And we're going to have some great speakers, teachers that's leading these workshops and leading these seminars. But you'll hear more about that. That's November 3rd, 4th, and 5th here in Chicago. Okay, but let's get started. Next week, I will be back. I will be back next week, and we will. Yep. We will be back next week, and we will pick this up from where we are tonight. Okay, I'm getting ready to call this out for the night. I will talk with you all next week. Okay, God bless you all. Love you all. Thank you all for joining.
Your name is power, a strong tower makes me safe. And we're crying, nobody like you, Lord. Nobody like you. And we're crying out. Nobody like you, Lord. There's nobody like you. Hey, and we're crying to you, Almighty. Nobody like you. There's nobody like you. And we say, nobody like you, Lord. Nobody like you, Lord. When I consider your heaven and the work of your hands, say, nobody like you, Lord. Nobody like you, Lord. Every demon, it's your name of sing. Get strong enough for God to fight for me. Oh Lord, you are my glory, God. You're the lifter, the lifter, the lifter. You are the lifter, the lifter, the lifter. Nobody like you, Lord. So who would serve a God like this? Who would serve a God like this? When I think about it, who would serve a God like this? He's my Savior, Redeemer, Deliverer, my hiding place. He's my keeper, my provider, my way maker, my sustainer. He's my strength, he's my love, he's mercy, he's forgiveness. Who would serve a God like this? Hey, who would serve a God like this? Hey, say, who would serve a God like this? When I think about the goodness of God, who would serve a God like this? When I think about the mercy of God, who would serve a God like this? When I think about the love of God, who would serve a God like this? When I think of the faithfulness of God, who would serve a God like this? Who would serve a God like that? Who would serve a God like this? Who would serve a keeper like that? Who would serve a God like this? Who would serve a Savior like I have? Who would serve a God like this? When I think about you, God, all I can say, who would serve a God like this? 'Cause you've been so good to me. You've been good to me. You would serve a God like this. Hey. I searched all over, couldn't find nobody. I looked high and low, still couldn't find nobody. Nobody greater,